All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is May 26th, 2015, and we want to welcome everyone to our show. As always, before we get started with the show, we always want to tell you about one of our sponsors. And our sponsor, of course, is Audible.com. What is Audible, you might ask? Well, Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. And just so you know what Audible is, it has content that includes over 180,000 different audio programs from leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. So it's just about anything you can think of. In being a listener to the show, you get an opportunity to check those things out and see if there's something there that might be of interest to you. So again, being a listener of this program, you can take up Audible's offer by getting your free audiobook and enjoying that free 30-day trial membership. So the way you do that is you go to audibletrial.com/SasquatchWatchRadio. Again, to go ahead and get your free title and start listening for free, go to audibletrial.com/SasquatchWatchRadio and start your free trial today. Check that thing out. All righty. How are you doing this evening, Creature Seeker?
I'm doing great, Billy.
Good.
Hopefully, your weekend was a lot better than some people's weekends down there in Texas.
Yeah, actually, yeah. We had a great weekend. Very memorable weekend, and it's a weekend that I wish I could repeat every weekend. But you know, we had a great time, great weekend. Me and Janine both. How about you?
It was a very relaxing weekend for me. I had to work part of it, but all in all, it was just a very relaxing weekend. And again, it was great not to have to, run around and just try to get stuff done like every other weekend that befalls me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was good. I got to go to a cemetery and plant some flags.
Yep.
So it was very memorable for me. So of course we're talking about Memorial Day, right? So Memorial Day is a very old holiday. I think it was started out as Decoration Day back in 1868,
right,
by a group of Union soldiers. And I think there are other sort of Memorial Days by the Confederate soldiers. I think eventually they just kind of combined them into Memorial Day. So, and it's a very old holiday here in the United States, and one that I really, have a lot of thankfulness for, because I do thank all the veterans who gave their lives so that we can live in a society that cherishes freedom.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of folks kind of forget that, and a lot of people look at Memorial Day as, hey, it's the day they open the pools.
Yeah.
It's the day we have a barbecue. But yeah, you're right. It's of course, as you know, things are extremely busy here around the Washington, D.C. area on Memorial Day, because you have all the motorcycles that ride into D.C. And let me tell you, all weekend long, because I don't live very far from Interstate 66, and all weekend long, all you heard was rumble. All the way, just from every hour. I mean, just constantly all weekend long.
Rolling thunder.
Yep. And I tell you, it's amazing.
Well, I am happy to bring our next guest on. And he's an independent researcher out of Ohio. His name is Mark Hudak. He's Billy, you and I have met him on many occasions, and every time I go to some sort of conference or event, he's always there with his wife. And so I thought it'd be kind of interesting to bring him on the show, talk about some of the work he's been doing. And he's also a speaker at the upcoming Bigfoot Days at Beaver Creek. So
Great.
it'd be great to sort of get like a little teaser about what he'll be talking about. So, hey, Mark, welcome to the show.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Pretty good.
Great to have you, Mark.
Yes, great to be here. So
Mark,
go ahead.
You've been a researcher in Ohio for a number of years. Am I right about that?
Well, actively for over 6 years, and inactively probably for 16 years.
Now, what does inactively mean? You watched Finding Bigfoot on TV?
Oh no, not 16 years ago. I wasn't on. What started me was my first encounter. I'm an avid hunter, have been all my life. 16 years ago, around about the end of October, November, I can't pick out the exact weekend, but went down to southern Ohio, southeastern Ohio, in Monroe and Belmont counties, and we're hunting in over 2,000 acres of private land. And we basically were stalked by two Bigfoot, me, my brother, and two other gentlemen, at about 2:33 in the morning for over a mile in the woods, and then we were screamed at. And when we were screamed at, it literally was like being at a rock concert. It was probably about 20, 30 yards away. You could just feel it go through your body. And that, when he screamed, it was the closest I could find, because when I came home, I was still in shock. And as soon as I walked through the door, my wife said to me, what happened this weekend? And I sat down and told her. I mean, we can get into all the detail of this story. I mean, it's a pretty good one, because it not only went from about 2:33 in the morning, almost all the way till about 11:30 in the a.m., almost noon the next day.
Well, let's get into some of the details then.
All right. Basically, I'm a machinist. At that time, I was working second shift, so I'd get off work at about 11. I'd pick up my brother, the other two gentlemen, and we'd go down to Monroe, Belmont counties to go hunting low season for deer. Every fall, we usually put a camper down there, and we'd stay at the camper. And usually by the time we get down there, it's about 2:33 in the morning. And 16 years ago, we were pretty hardcore. And we would just grab our gear, our tree stands, get up in the woods, get where we wanted to get, and get in the tree stand and catnap till the sun come up. This weekend was no different. We got down there, and as we got out of the truck, everything was still and quiet. You didn't hear any crickets or anything like that going on, except up the road and down the road from us, you could hear a barred owl, two barred owls talking back and forth with their normal cadence of who cooks for you all. And didn't think nothing of it, a couple owls. I mean, I grew up with Boggy Creek and all that. I always thought Pacific Northwest. I never thought Ohio. And I've never had any kind of an encounter or anything like that before this. So Bigfoot was the last thing in my mind. So we grabbed our stuff. We crossed the road. We had to climb up a big hill. Probably, it was a good-sized ridge. And once you get to the top of the ridge, we just followed the ridge out. And it met another super ridge that went into it, which was about a mile back. And we got about 3/4 of the way up the hill, stopped, took a breather, and we had noticed that the owls had now crossed the street and were probably 75 to 100 yards below us on the hill, but flanking us on either side. And we still didn't think anything of it. I guess we just weren't paying attention. But now that I think about it and remember everything through my mind, that's what happened. So we took a breather, hit the top of the hill, and started going out the ridge. And as we started going out the ridge, they had closed ranks on us, and now we're about 20, 30 yards away from us on either side, flanking us. All that we had with us were the little mini Maglite flashlights, which basically are propelled by just 2 AA batteries. So they don't give you much light. They're perfect for, right there in front of you, but for reaching out and seeing anything, they're just no good. But we cruised down there, and we realized that they were following us, and everything's running through your mind. We were thinking, my buddy even said, hey, we jumping deer? And I'm thinking, no, we can't be a deer because it's not running away. If it was a deer, it would run away. If it was a coyote or anything else, it should run away. And these weren't running away, so it just didn't register with us. But every time we would walk, they would walk with us. As soon as we stopped, they would stop. And there were several times, because my brother was in the lead and I was in the rear. And I stopped a couple times when they started walking and stood there. And I could distinctly hear bipedal walking, breaking of branches and stuff like that.
How far away, Mark, would you?
I would say they were
within
within 30, 40 yards. They were within 30, 40 yards. One was slightly uphill on top of the ridge. No, paralleling us.
Okay.
They were right there. They were right there the whole time. There was no hesitation on their part.
You keep saying they.
At one point, because there was more than one. There was 2 of them at least.
So what gives you the impression that there was more than one, or that there were 2?
Because I'm hearing one on the right of me and one on the left of me.
Okay.
The whole way down that ridge as we went down. And we got to the spot where we were traditionally going to break up and go to our specific stand sites. And we're just kind of huddled around, and we're kind of whispering to ourselves where we're going to go, what time we're going to meet up, and what the heck is going on. And that was when this one decided to scream at us. And when I came back, I started doing research. And the clearest I could find of a recording of it was from the BFRO, that Columbiana howl that's got the dogs in the background. And you can kind of faintly hear it. But this thing was like right there. And it literally started as a low growl and then came up in crescendo.
Let's go, Mark. Let's go back to that evening or that morning.
Okay.
All right. So you heard the scream, and the scream was coming from where where was it coming from?
Where I'm standing in the direction we were going, it was off my left, and it was maybe 30 yards down, right over a hill, just on the other side of a pond, in a stand of pretty tight pine trees. They actually came in about 4 years later, and they timbered out them pine trees because the pine trees were all on the tops of the ridges. As we were going down the ridge, we were slightly off to the left-hand side of it, paralleling the ridge, because the pines were in the top. One was going through those pines. The other one was slightly over the hill, right on the edge there of the next little cutover. Because in Ohio, the hills are kind of like stepped, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
At all. And it was like just on that step on the hill going back and forth the whole way down. But
the scream that you heard, that was different than the creatures that were paralleling you both on the right and left.
Oh yeah, they kept hooting back and forth like owls. But we knew they weren't owls. There's no way in heck, because an owl, when it flies, makes no noise, for one, and they sure as heck ain't going to be making stomping noises through the woods. So.
And then after the scream, what was the reaction from your colleagues?
Well, we were all pretty much okay. What the AG double toothpicks was that, for starters? But my brother even said to me, he's like, well, let's get the heck out of here. And I misregistered it. I'm thinking he wanted to go back down to the truck and drive back to Akron. I told him, I said, I ain't driving back to Akron now. So we stayed there. We ended up standing there for like 45 minutes. Because we were
together.
right there in front of each other, eye to eye, looking over each other's shoulder in case something came up. All we had were compound bows. So, the thing we're going to do is stay together. So that's what we did. We stood there and we're kind of like talking about it. And my one buddy said, "That sounds like Bigfoot." And I'm like, "I kind of think so too." But yet at the same time, I was kind of like dumbfounded that it actually had went on. I mean, like I said, we were doing this every weekend. And I've hunted all my life. And I've never had anything like this happen. I mean, this was truly life-changing for me. And as far as I'm concerned, it was the only thing it could have been, especially when it cut loose and screamed.
So what eventually happened? You guys were there for 45 minutes, and then
we stood there for about 45 minutes, and we decided we were going to hunt it in that area. So we split up, and each of us grabbed a tree. Now we closed ranks because usually we're a couple hundred yards from each other, where we set up at, because, like I said, that ridge actually intersected with another main ridge coming into it, diagonally. And we would scatter one way down the other ridge and back and forth and up over the other side. Prime deer hunting area. But we closed ranks and got within probably about 50 yards to at least where we were in a tree and something was going on. We could flash our flashlight to the next buddy. And that's what we decided to do. But we got up in trees and we hunted it. And from the moment that thing screamed, nothing, no sound whatsoever. It was almost like you were in a vacuum. I mean, it was kind of like that before with no crickets and stuff like that. But this time, after that thing screamed, we never heard another sound until 11:30 in the morning. We heard our own sound as we're going up trees and got in tree stands and stuff. But there was nothing else up as far as noise. And we're all thinking that, okay, the sun's going to come up and, everything's going to be cool. Well, the sun came up and nothing happened. It was still dead quiet. You didn't hear any birds, no squirrels, no deer, no nothing. It was just like being in church or something until almost 11:30. And one of the things that just dumbfounds me to this day is I never heard them walk away. And I don't know how they walked away or how they disappeared. I mean, they were like right there, 20, 30 yards away when that one screamed, and the other one, you could clearly hear it when it stopped where it was at in the brush. Couldn't see it with the flashlight. We knew it was there. But after that one screamed, we never heard either one walk away. And it was, that autumn, it was a drought. It was extremely dry that fall. So I still have no explanation with that, of how they managed to sneak away. I imagine it took until about 11:30 in the morning for them to do it, but they did it.
What makes you think that they went away? Why don't you think they just waited there and waited for you guys to leave?
Well, because about 11:30, we started hearing birds chirping. I seen a deer at 11:30, about 15 till 12 actually. I had a doe come by, and it was almost like turning on a light. At the same time, yeah, I could go back a little bit on that, because after that thing screamed at us, me personally, I felt kind of like not necessarily a dread overcome me, but an oppression of a type of, impending, just hang loose. And I guess I did, but I guess we all did. But it was about 11:30 when I started hearing birds and stuff, and that just kind of like lifted up out of my body. I don't know if it means anything or what, but I kind of still think they were around, at least until 11:30.
Now, did you smell anything? A lot of times eyewitnesses report that there's a really bad smell that accompanies their sighting.
No smells at all. No smells at all. And that particular evening, it was a very still night. There was hardly any breeze at all going. So if they had a smell to them, I'm sure it would have lingered in that area for a long time, and we would have smelled it. But there was no smell. I've kind of surmised a theory since that has happened after all the literature and everything else I've gone over. Because I came home and I told a few people and kind of was laughed at, and I just kind of thought, well, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, but not yet. I'm going to research and read everything I can about this. And at this point, I actually think that there was a group of them that were moving through that area. And the two that followed us and the one that screamed at us, I believe they were like sentries down there at the road. And the family unit or whatever it was had crossed the road, and they were just hanging out to make sure the situation was okay. Because, I mean, we literally come down the road. I pulled into an Amishman's driveway that we know, parked the truck, got out, and went up the hill. Just that quick. I mean, there was no messing around or anything like that. And I think they took it upon themselves to swing in on either side and flank us and follow us to see what we were doing. And I think we actually probably, in the course of going down that ridge, were heading in the same direction as the rest of them. And they got a little bit offensive because we got a little too close.
Mark, why don't you think that someone was trying to, spook you out of a good hunting ground?
It's 2:33 in the morning. This is private hunting area. There's nobody in this area at all. I mean, I've hunted it for over 25, 30 years. Never been an issue. Never been an issue. I used to go down there before my brother started getting into the bow hunting. I was going down there by myself. Matter of fact, my wife had told me, I worry about you going down there. So I made a promise to her that I wouldn't get in trees, still hunted from the ground. But
so you don't think it's possible that could have been another person just trying to...
There's no way. They would have had to have a serious hi-fi stereo system with huge speakers to recreate the volume of that noise when that thing screamed. Because it was literally like being at Ozfest and you're standing right in front of the speakers. The sound just went through you and your body vibrated. It was that loud.
Now, did you talk about this with the other members of your group after the fact? I mean,
we didn't. After we met back up at noon, we all kind of like said, okay, let's just get on out of here. So we went over by Seneca Lake to another private property that we were hunting, and we ended up hanging out there the rest of the weekend. But we didn't talk about it. There was nothing discussed or anything like that, which to this day still, I think we were in shock, is what I think we were. Because like I said, when I came home Sunday after the fact, Sunday evening, and I walked through the door, my wife took one look at me and said, what the heck, what happened? And I sat down and I told her. The first words out of my mouth were, I don't think you're going to believe me, but I think we had a Bigfoot.
And so at the time, the three of you said, all right, so that sounds like a Bigfoot, and you didn't say, you know what, this would be a good time to, GTFO. Instead you stayed there.
Yeah.
And
well, we had each other. I mean, as far as that, I mean, we were all right there. We were thinking, I mean, we just cruised a mile through the woods. It's not like it's going to be a quick 100-yard jaunt right back to the truck.
Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of thinking, I probably imagine that they were thinking the same way too, that maybe we should just stand right here instead of trying to turn around and walk back to the truck, or worse yet, run back to the truck. Because if it is any kind of a predator and something else, there's a good chance it's going to come after you, because now you've turned yourself into a prey animal by running.
And you didn't feel like you were at a disadvantage because you only had like bows?
Oh yeah, I felt at a big disadvantage, a very big disadvantage, and I was very humbled at the moment. Yeah, I was very humbled at the moment. I'm thinking, okay, now what's going to happen? You know, and this was before I did any research and, you know, thought about what I can think about now, like a rock comes sailing at me or a log or, you know, something like that. I mean, now that I think about it, it's like it's a wonder they didn't heave a rock at us or something, but it never happened.
And so when there was sunlight finally, did you think to go out to where you had heard the yell come from to see if you could find
No,
tracks
we did
or
not.
anything?
We did not. And you know, that's another irony of the thing that bothers me to this day is I wish we would have had enough gumption to go and look where that where the location where that thing was at when it screamed at us. I mean, I could almost pick it out in the dark and, you know, find it in the light, but no, we never bothered to. I think we were just more concerned about just sliding on out of there and getting out of there. I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, we had an adrenaline rush, 2:30 until almost noon. And I think when we finally come out of the woods, we were like just drained. I mean, there's no other way to say it. We were drained.
How high up were your tree stands?
Oh, I normally am 20 plus feet in the air.
Okay. So you felt like you were well out of reach.
12 foot is technically above the smell of a deer, but people usually go 20 foot. I go 20 foot, 20, 25.
And you didn't feel like you were being watched that whole time that you were up in the trees?
I felt a presence, but no, I didn't feel like I was watched. I knew there was something around me, but I couldn't pinpoint it, what it was.
Have you ever been back to that location?
Oh, yeah. We were back there freaking 2 weekends later. Matter of fact, it was the very next weekend, we went down to that same area, but we were further up the road and dropped into an area where we call the fire break. And you basically are at the top of a hill and you go all the way down to the bottom of the fire break, and then we split off from there and go hunt it. But we had got all the way to the bottom of it, and we heard another one scream very similar to that Columbiana howl, but it had come from over the hill from where we just came from, but had to have been clear on the other side of the road and way down in a hollow. It had to have been almost a mile away.
And that was 2 weekends later?
It was the next weekend later.
Oh, it was the next weekend.
Yeah. And matter of fact, my buddy that was with me, Mike, we're kind of like staring at each other in the dark. He had his boy with him. And we're like kind of thinking to ourselves, he actually said it, he's like, well, is that thing going to take a breath? Because the duration of that scream was over a minute long. And all I could think of is, geez, the lung capacity there was just incredible.
Now, prior to you hearing that vocalization, what was your thought about it? Did you ever think about Bigfoot? Did you have
I grew up, seeing In Search Of, seen Legends of Boggy Creek. I got a book or two in school through Riff. And, I always thought, Pacific Northwest, but that was, when I was like 10, 12 years old, stuff like that. But as I grew older in my teen years and then my adulthood, I never gave much thought to it. I always thought if it is real, it's Pacific Northwest, it ain't in Ohio. And I think that was the one thing that just bowled me over the most was this happened here in Ohio. And then I really was bowled over when I got on the computer and looking for information and found the BFRO and their immense website. And then I seen all the sightings in the database that they had of Ohio, and I was just perplexed.
So
Yeah.
after you had that encounter, when did you actually start to go looking for Bigfoot?
Well, that would have been a little over 6 years ago. I mean, I kind of was indirectly doing it every time I went hunting or fishing or whatever, but things didn't still start clicking until like 6 years ago, when I thought, you know what, I'm going to start going out and doing this. Actually, it's out of boredom, to be quite honest, because I took 5 deer last year. I'm bored. To me, this is almost like the ultimate thing to hunt, because it's as smart as me, if not smarter. Ain't going to kill it. Want to take a picture of it maybe, but I just actually want to have a visual. I've had probably 4 or 5 different encounters since then doing research where we've known stuff is happening and they have to be around us. Still haven't had a visual, but we know they were there.
And so you're the no-kill camp,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, heck no. Ain't no way. There's no way, because I don't fear my capabilities of what I can do. I fear that if I knock one down, I fear his buddy, that I won't make it out of the woods alive. I seriously do. After the way these two, when we had our encounter, flanked us and were on us, they could have had us at any moment. How should I say it? There's no way. There's no way I would take a shot at one.
All right, why don't we take some callers here? The number is 347-237-5070. When you call in, remember to hit the 1 key so that we know that you want to speak to the host. So again, the number is 347-237-5070. So Mark, you're speaking at the Beaver Creek event. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about there at that event?
Yeah, sure can. It is the Bigfoot Day at Beaver Creek. It is August the 16th, 2015. They're going to have a pancake breakfast at the Pioneer Village Barn Pavilion from 8 a.m. to noon. The vendors will open their doors for business at 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. And then, beginning at noon, the following researchers will be speaking at the barn. The schedule of the speakers include Brian Seach and Fred Segula. They're going to be talking about Bigfoot at Beaver Creek and PA sightings. And then from 1:15 to 2:15, you're going to have Jody Cook talking about Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. And then they're going to have a lunch break from 2:15 to 2:45. And then they're going to kick it up again, 2:45 to 3:45, with the legend hunters Ryan Cavaline and Dave and Carrie Rupert, which are from the Treasure Hunters and Bigfoot Sightings in PA. And then at 4 o'clock, I'll be speaking, and I'll be talking about Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. And then after that, they're going to have a question and answer session and final comments at 5 to 6. They're going to have children's games and activities from 2 to 4 p.m. And if you have any more information on it, you can contact Brian Seach at 724-777-4803.
Mark, is there a website or a Facebook page people can go to for information?
I haven't found one yet on Facebook, but I'm sure if you look up Brian Seach, you can find something. This is at Beaver Creek State Park, which is off in Ohio, off of 30.
Okay, so hopefully Brian will call in and give us a website or something, because I know that
I don't know if he made an event on that or not. I don't think he did yet. I'll have to look.
I know he's been planning this for quite a while. Sounds like you've got some great speakers. With the exception of Fred Saluga.
Oh, come on now. Don't be messing with my bud, Interdimensional Fred. I just talked to him the other day, man.
Now, do you believe in Fred's theory of interdimensional Bigfoot?
I am still on the fence with it all. I really am. My heart and soul wants to believe in a flesh and blood. Through my life, and when I was in high school, I took environmental management and stuff like that. I've always been into nature and everything else, and animal behavior. I think that was one of the reasons why I became such a successful hunter, is because I read everything I could get my hands on about everything I was going after. And when I was out in the woods and I seen something that was different that I didn't know what it was, I would go to the library and try to find out what it was. I did the same thing when this thing screamed at me too.
We have a caller, Mark.
Okay, cool.
Sorry to interrupt. We have a caller from 740 area code.
Hi. Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
This is Laurie.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. Mark, I'm also from Ohio.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you said that when you had one of your encounters, you pulled in one of your Amish friends' driveway. Have you talked to the Amish? Have they ever come forward to tell you about they won't talk about it, will they?
No, they will not.
No,
I've asked several times because I know they had to have heard some screams and stuff like that going on, and they just kind of look over the corner of their hat and kind of smile at you sheepishly and just shake their head no. So no, I know this going on.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now, this person Amish now we have a big population out in Holmes County. And they have different bishops and stuff, and they have different beliefs. Have you talked to any Amish out there? Are they a little bit more forthcoming because they're more around the quote-unquote English, or?
No, I haven't been out there and talked to them. These people, actually, this 2,000 acres I was hunting at, originally my aunt owned the home, and she passed away, and it was sold to the Amish. And we just kept up a relationship with them, and were able to go down there, park to be able to go up and hunt. They had only so many acres, but the 2,000 acres we had written permission from a corporation that owned that through my father.
Okay. Now let me ask you another question. I live in Jefferson County, and we've had a couple sightings here.
Okay.
So Belmont's just not too far down the road.
No, ma'am.
Pardon me?
I said, no, ma'am.
Yeah. So, and I had one here in Jefferson County, but my question is, when you talk to people, do you see a cluster, in Belmont County or Jefferson County, where they might be at, or?
I think the clusters are gathered around water sources. More or less.
Okay.
I've kind of noticed that. Big time, which is kind of different because where we had this encounter, it's pretty far from a water source. Now we were right off of State Route 800.
Oh, okay.
Below Barnesville, but before you get to Woodsfield, just right out of a little town called Malaga. And actually, we were off of Harper Ridge Road.
Because
where we parked.
But
you were quite a ways from Monroe Lake. Monroe Lake was the fairly closest lake. The next nearest, I would say, would be almost Seneca Lake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know where that's at.
And then you've got Muskingum Watershed District all through there. Barnesville has, 4 or 5 different reservoirs.
Yeah, because there's a campground at Piedmont. And that's the Muskingum Watershed.
Yes.
Area, yeah. And I have a friend who just got a camper out there, and he said he had just heard stories about them being out around there. So I don't know.
I see one area that's probably going to pick up if anybody catches on to it, and I think a lot of people probably won't. But Egypt Wildlife Valley.
You know what? I said that in chat because I had heard that the Egypt Valley Wildlife area was like very creepy. Like a lot of people when they go down there.
Yes, it is. I've been all through it.
I've been all through it. And that's exactly what they say.
During the daytime, I've been all through it. When we used to go down there spring turkey hunting, because we'd come out of the woods about noon, we'd grill up some trout, grab our fishing poles, and we'd head up 800 and go up through there because they've just got a slew of reclaimed ponds, and it's old strip pit is what it is. It's reclaimed strip mine, but they put in a bunch of ponds and stocked them all. Matter of fact, I have a friend that just told me he's got prints of a mountain lion in there.
Yeah, well, they found one in Jefferson County. They had a picture of the DWR did, or the DNR did.
Cool.
Had a picture of a cougar in Jefferson County and Fernwood State Park.
They're coming.
Yeah.
Well, if you listen to the experts say that there are no more eastern cougars living here in the Northeast.
Right.
Oh, I know, and there was a picture of it. It was on the news everywhere. So they're wrong.
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Yeah, they're very wrong.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna let you go here in a second, but I just want to tell you I can see the High River from my apartment, and sometimes I really wonder. If they go up and down the Ohio Valley. I mean the High River.
Well, sure they do.
And it scares me. But I'm
you
sure
really
they
don't
do.
have anything to be scared of. You really don't. I think unless you actually threaten them.
Yeah.
I think the vast majority of encounters fall into two different categories. Well, it's the same thing, my wife is telling me, but it's like accidental, like you go around the corner in your car and there's one crossing the road. You come up over a ridge and there's one scooting out of the hollow on the other side.
Well, the encounter I had in Jefferson County, it was a juvenile, and it was coming, and it saw my car, and it stopped, and it actually, when it saw, it was going to go somewhere else, and when it saw my car, it stopped and came toward us. And, came within front of our car. I would say if I got out of my car, take 5 steps, it would have been right there.
Wow.
It scared the living daylights out of me. And I had my daughter with me, So,
and then what did it do? Turn around and run, or did it just run across the road?
It just kept on going. And you know what? I honestly didn't want to look because there were woods on the side. And I just kind of looked out of my peripheral vision to make sure it kept going because, I didn't know if, there were bigger ones down there, and I really didn't want to know.
Probably a good chance.
Yeah, and
how long ago was that sighting encounter that you had?
It was in 2008.
Really? Cool.
I never reported a BFRO because, I think, well, I'm not going to go there. But, know.
I wasn't going to go there either, thank you.
But, it really scared the living daylights out of me because, I don't want to say it charged my car, but it almost was like a bluff charge, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it, and my dog, I don't know, it was just a very scary, it didn't do anything to us. But it just scared the living daylights out of my daughter and I, and I think I stopped breathing when it was in front of the car. Maybe if I don't breathe, maybe it won't hear me.
I think they are masters at intimidation.
Oh, well,
he
intimidated me.
If they want you out of a specific area, they're going to make you scared enough that you're going to get out of that area.
Yeah, well, they did.
I bet.
So. But anyways, well, thank you so much. Oh, I want to ask you one quick question. It doesn't have to do with Bigfoot.
Sure.
Did you have a relative that owned a bar in Tiltonsville, Rayland, Dillonville area?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just asking because it was called Hudak's. Okay.
Right.
And it's not a popular name.
Thank you for calling.
Yes, thank you. And you know what? You take care.
You too. Have a good night.
Thanks for calling, Laurie.
Hey, no problem. Bye-bye.
Bye. So I'm going to have to check that out. It's called Hudak's.
Yeah. Heck yeah, me too. Let me know when you're going. I'll go with you. We'll hook up.
I wonder if they have prime rib there, Mark.
I hope so. Or at least roast beast. I know how you are.
Yeah, at the very least. So that's pretty interesting. So do do you live near where Lori is talking about?
No, but I've heard of the area. Yes.
Okay.
I've heard of the area.
So what's your next research project?
Well, mostly the sky's the limit. We've been doing Salt Fork. I go down to Beach City Wildlife Area. We've seen some pretty impressive things down there over the last 2 years. We're also thinking about going and checking out Beaver Creek a little bit more closely. I'm also thinking about doing Wills Creek and some of that. And as far as that, we're thinking about doing like a canoe trip into it and bringing a tent and just camping out and seeing what happens.
What's the longest squatching expedition you've ever done?
Well, I'd say about a week. Because I was deer hunting at the same time.
So when you go out there, what is your primary method of researching? Are you the type who does a lot of wood knocks, or do you just find a place to sit down and listen to the forest?
I don't do any calling. I do not do wood knocks. I do not do the yells, the screams, or any of that. Simply because we don't really know the meaning of them. You can do the whoop and this and that, but do you really know what you're transmitting to them? I'm afraid some of those could be a challenging type call. Some of them could be a mating type call. Do we really know? We don't. And then I've noticed a lot too lately with some of the things I've participated in the last few years. A lot of the children are picking up the whoop and they're going through the woods doing the whoop, whoop, whoop all the time. I think it's going to have a negative effect with anybody that's doing calling and wood knocks, because I spring turkey hunt, and usually after the first week, because of the hunting pressure in the areas that I hunt, after the first week, them turkeys go quiet there and do a call until your hand falls off, and they will not respond, only because they've been beat to death with calls and they get call shy. I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with Bigfoot. So I try to do a more passive approach where you just get out there and you let them come to you, because I think that is the type of encounter that you want, simply because they're in total control over the whole thing. And they're going to be most advantageous. If they're going to come up, they're going to come up. They're going to feel more comfortable doing it than they are with you trying to call them in. No, I don't believe in the calling and all that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people do this call blasting stuff, and it'd be kind of funny if what they're really call blasting was, in Bigfoot talk, come beat the crap out of me.
Yeah. Well, you got to feel one of them's got to be a challenge call.
Yeah.
I mean, pick one. Really.
So
and
I know you hang out with
some of the stories I've read too over the years. I've probably been through over 100 books now, or pretty close to it. Some of the encounters I've read, they've like cited a female or whatever that was calling or barking or whatever, and person that made the sighting almost said to the observation that, well, I kind of think it's in heat and looking for a mate. Now, whether they go in heat or not is a different story. Because me personally, I think they're closer to man. I really think they are a relative to us. And the biggest reason why I think that is because there's been a lot of downplay over the years. There's been a lot of government cover-up and stuff like that going on, that they've just kept it quiet. And I think if one is ever dragged out, they're going to figure out that it's going to be like a close relative to us. Now, whether it's a Neanderthal or something like that, who's to say? We'll find out. But
so is it your opinion, Mark, that the government knows about these creatures and they're just really trying to keep it Sasquatch stuff?
In a way, yeah. In a way, I kind of do. I mean, because I've read some stories about Mount St. Helens, other situations where people have allegedly hit them by cars, and the men in black show up and basically secure the situation and tell the people that this never happened. Tom Powell's got a book out called The Locals. He's got one in there. Then I've heard different things about Mount St. Helens when it exploded, that the National Guard and the Army went in there to clean up the site because there was literally wildlife everywhere posing, and they needed to clean it up, and they were encountering these too, decomposing. And they put them in a separate pile. They had armed guards on them. So, I don't know. All I got to say is, and I've thought about it long and hard. If one comes out of the woods and they declare it and it's actually a human, how many religions out there would have some serious explaining to do? I mean, that's a thought to think about.
Well, let me ask you a question. It's totally hypothetical.
Sure.
What percentage of Bigfoot has to be human for Bigfoot to be qualified as human? Because what if Bigfoot is a combination of, human DNA, Neanderthal DNA, who knows, other primate DNA? What if
go ahead.
What if only 10% of Bigfoot DNA was human DNA?
I would think that would be something that a scientist is going to be able to better answer as far as what percentage counts. Other than that, I mean, chimpanzees share over 99% of the same DNA as us. So I certainly think it's going to be more than 10%.
Well, I'm just saying, hypothetically.
I think it's probably going to be 99.8999, if not 99.9. I think it's going to be that close.
Well, let me just say this. If they ever did find out that, Bigfoot had 10% of human DNA, that's still twice as much DNA as Fred Sluga has.
Oh, no, leave Fred out of it. Fred's a great guy, man.
Well, you know what? Awesome. I know you've been hanging out with Brian Seach and Fred Sluga a lot, so I got to ask you this question. All right.
All right.
Do you think that there is a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs?
I think there's a great possibility. Like I was saying earlier about two different categories. And the second category is premeditated on the part of a Bigfoot. Who's to say they're not here to observe us? Because they've been observing us for quite a while.
Well, who's they? Who that you're talking about?
The Bigfoot. I'm talking about the Bigfoot.
So you think that Bigfoot came from,
No, I don't. I don't know. I do not know that question. I do not know the answer to that question. And I am in no shape, way, or form ready to answer that question. To me, they're flesh and blood. But I've read enough stories now that there's a possibility.
Of what? A possibility of what?
A connection with extraterrestrials, and either the extraterrestrials brought them here, or the extraterrestrials are monitoring them here in some way, shape, or form.
Well,
I don't know.
All
I try to deal with right now is the flesh and blood aspect of it. And from a lot of the stuff that I've seen and read about, personally, I kind of think they're a flesh and blood thing. Now, if I see a UFO come down and one come out, by golly, we'll be going in the other direction in a real quick hurry now.
If the extraterrestrials had some sort of interest in Bigfoot, I would say that they're going in the right direction because what it seems like now, Mark, seems like they have a huge fascination with trailer parks.
Ha. That's
so. I don't know what they're thinking.
I don't know. To you about another thing that happened. We went down 2 years ago down to Beach City, and we found a rock stack alongside of a trail. And this was a pretty well-worn, hard-packed trail. We noticed that several of the rocks that were used to make this rock stack were actually pried out of the trail. There were no pry marks whatsoever on the rocks or in the surrounding soil where the rocks were deeply embedded in this trail. I mean, some of them were over 2 inches deep, the depression that was left. Itself was kind of leaning over a little bit, but the whole thing was in the sunlight through broken woods, but it got majority of the sunlight for most of the day. And right across the trail on the other side was a loose rubble field of rocks. Now, if somebody wanted to create a hoax and make a rock stack, why would you pull rocks out of a trail that are deeply embedded when you got a rubble field right on the other side of the trail within 10 feet?
Mark, it just seems to me that, I've heard these things, these reports of stick formations and rock formations.
Right.
But, both of those are ways that human beings mark trails.
Right.
And especially if you found it near or on a trail, it seemed to me that they were made by people.
Within 10 feet off the side. Now, to me, looking at that rock stack, it looked like to me like it was creating a habitat for rodents, because the sunlight will hit the rocks and heat the rocks up warmer than the regular surrounding soil because they're on top of the soil. And then the rocks will keep that heat and radiate that heat throughout the night, which is going to be a perfect place for a rodent to hide out at and keep warm all night. I think they're setting up themselves up with like McDonald's or Burger King, that they're coming back through and they're checking out them rock stacks later on.
So you think that they're creating these rock formations as some sort of trap for little rodents?
Well, sure. It's not necessarily a trap. It's just you're creating habitat. They have enough foresight and forethought that they're creating these because they know they're going to come back through at some point in time, whether they're going through and coming back a week later or a month later. They're coming back through and they're going to go and check them again.
Well,
there was chipmunks all over that area there too. It was incredible.
If I were a rodent, it just seems like if there's already like a bunch of rocks in a rubble field, why wouldn't I just make my home there instead of the condo that someone just made of rocks?
Because those were on the other side of the trail and those were completely shaded. And it was enough of a dense canopy that it wasn't going to give them much light during the day. The sun wasn't going to be hitting it. It was very strategically placed.
Well, that's an interesting
thing. When we looked at that for a long time, because I was looking for a pry mark, like somebody with a screwdriver or a hammer or even a stick to try to pry these rocks out. I mean, they were embedded over 2 inches deep, a couple of them. And I just kept thinking to myself, okay, that would take a heck of a lot of strength just to be able to put your hand on that rock and just literally pry it right out of the trail without trying to, use a pry tool. It was literally just lifted out in several places. And then again, when you got the rocks on the other side of the trail, why don't you use those?
Those are all very good questions.
I didn't understand that one. But I'll tell you what, I mean, if it was somebody pulling a prank or a hoax, why would you pull them out of the trail when you got a rubble field right next to it?
Yeah, Mark, honestly, I don't know if I'm sold on this theory that Bigfoot makes stick formations or
I'm
rock
not
piles.
either. I'm not either. I'll tell you that right now.
But all I can say is I don't know.
I think they make a few, but I don't think they make as many as, I mean, one of the first things that I encountered while doing this is I had people showing me pictures of the teepee structures that are sticks going around a tree, and it kind of looks like a teepee formation. And I'm looking at these pictures, and I'm like, well, do you know what kind of tree that is? And they're like, well, no. And I could identify the tree. It was actually a red maple tree. And a red maple tree is a self-pruning tree. So as it grows, all the lower branches, it casts off. And when they fall, they actually just fall straight down, and they create the teepee structure around it. I challenged the person. I said, can you show me a stick in this picture that came from another tree? And they couldn't do it because all the bark patterns matched the tree that it came from. So I have found ones where the branches are imported. And those are pretty intriguing. We were kind of in Beach City, again, was it 2 years ago, me and Jeannie, and we found it looked like a blind at this one spot. And it was really pretty impressive because as you came down this deer trail up from these meadows where the Division of Wildlife had put in corn and mullet, stuff like that for the wildlife, if you came down this deer trail, the first thing I noticed was I seen that was 8 foot up in a probably about a 2-inch sugar maple sapling that was twisted and snapped. The branches beyond the snap were still green. They were just starting to wilt up. So it had to have happened within a day or two. Right next to the trail on the other side, on the right-hand side, maybe 5 foot off the trail, there was a old fence line that was there. And with the old barbed wire fencing, you have birds that land on the fence and they do their business and they drop seeds along the fence line. Well, you'll have a line of trees grow there. And what had grown there was a line of about half a dozen wild black cherry trees. Well, in between 4 of these wild black cherry trees interwoven was this stick structure that was just woven in between to create a blind. And it was went up to about 5 feet tall. And every one of the branches was imported. It was not from those wild black cherry trees, which was pretty impressive. And what intrigued me the most is if you continued to go down that deer trail another 15 feet, it dropped off and went around the side of a rock face. And going around that rock face, it created a blind corner. So I actually stood up in the blind. I actually went down around the corner first and came back up. And as I came back up, I'm like, holy crap. It's a perfect ambush spot where the deer in the evening are coming up that deer trail. They're coming around that blind corner. And bam, they're within 15 feet of a Sasquatch behind a freaking blind. It's a perfect setup.
So we have another caller here. Caller from the 816 area code. You're on the air.
Hey, what's up, Bruce?
Hey, who's this?
Chris from Kansas. I've been on your show before. I've had the Sasquatch daytime encounter from.
Oh, Chris.
Yeah. You remember me?
I do remember you. Yep.
Okay. This guy that you just had on is. I can tell you that right now.
All right. Why do you say that?
Well, I picked out about.
He's still on.
I'm still on.
Yeah. So yeah, Mark is still on the show here.
Okay. Well. Okay. I hope he hears me.
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. Sure. Why am I full of crap?
Well, you said about 4 things that didn't really make sense, and I've been a Bigfoot. I've been doing this for almost 25 years. I've been looking into it. I've been out 25 times. I don't know how many times. And what I listen to you, I mean, I give everybody, trust me, I give everybody a benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
And I was like, and I'm like, I want to hear this guy's story, but what you said, I gotta go no on this one.
Oh, okay, so Chris, what is the first thing that you disagree with that Mark had said?
Well, he said something on the count of, God damn it. I don't know. I mean, I listened to the whole story, but I was like walking in and out of the room, and I was shaking my head the whole time, and I was like going, no, absolutely no.
So we're referring to my encounter then, my original encounter.
Well, I was actually incurred on that one, and I listened to it, and I actually believed you on that one, but then when you started going into the motion on that one,
right?
And the more you started going into it, I was like going, well, I've seen the Sasquatch, and I've seen him up close before. I've seen him within, 40 yards, and I
Chris,
I don't know.
Chris, you can't. So I respect everyone's opinion, but you can't come on the show and say that Mark is full of crap. But you have to have a reason. You can't just say he's full of crap if you don't have a reason.
Well, Bruce, I'm sorry, but I don't really have a reason. But when I was walking around the living room here, and I was like shaking my head. I mean, I really don't have a reason. So.
Yeah, but so Chris, why you said you were shaking your head? What were you shaking your head about? What part of Mark's description of his sighting account or his vocalization account were you shaking your head at?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't remember.
Not one thing. I mean,
No.
So you were so offended. You had to call it. You had to call into the show, but you can't think of one thing, Chris?
No. Nope.
Well, I do give you an A for your honesty.
Nope, I really can't, Bruce. But I was just, I was listening to it, and I was like going, yeah, that's possible. Yep, I believe it. Yep, and as a witness and as a Bigfoot researcher, I was like going, yes, I believe this, I believe that, yes, yep. But then I started shaking my head, no. And I can honestly say that I've left the room a couple times, and I can't, there was a couple times that, that I didn't hear a couple things that I can't tell you about. But
the only thing I'd like to interject is now that I've read a lot and went over all these websites and been doing this for 6 years, I've put a lot of thought into what happened that night.
Okay.
And I firmly believe that there was some kind of a unit or some kind of, a bunch of them going through there. If it wasn't that, the only other theory I could come up with would be to have been a couple of adolescents that just wanted to mess with us.
Well,
I mean, is that possible? I've heard accounts of adolescents, messing with people's houses and stuff like that.
I totally believe in that, because I have talked to probably 500, maybe 600 people that that they have walked up into their windows, they've walked up onto their decks.
Yes,
but
I've heard a few
I do not believe that UFOs and Bigfoot have anything related to them at all.
Well,
I think
I kind of don't too, and I really would like to stress that I believe in the flesh and blood, but I don't want to totally rule that out. And you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. I mean, if there's a possibility, like I said, you show me a UFO coming down and one popping out of it, I'll believe it.
Hey, I actually sold a UFO tape on eBay. So I've actually taped a UFO.
Cool.
So
never had an encounter.
I do believe in UFOs. Yes, I do. Do I believe in aliens? Yes, I do. Do I believe in Bigfoot?
The universe is.
I have seen them, but do I believe that UFOs and Bigfoot are related? No, I do not. I think Bigfoot's been here for probably 700,000 years to 1 million years. I think they've been here the whole time. I think it's evolution, and they just stopped evolution, and they just stayed in the woods, and they didn't want to go into the cities, and that's what I believe. Just what humans have done. You know, they just wanted to be woodmans, and they never did evolution. You know.
Sure.
And so that's
kind of
what I think.
Direction.
Yeah. You need to Facebook me. We need to talk a little more.
Sure. By all means, look me up.
All right, Chris. Thanks for calling into the show.
Hey, Bruce. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, buddy. All right, we have another caller from the 276 area code. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air. I think we lost that person. So that was pretty interesting. I wish it sounded like we had the beginnings of a good discussion.
Yes.
So maybe Chris will call back when he remembers the reason.
I hope he looks me up on Facebook. That'd be cool. I'm interested to have a conversation with him. Especially somebody that's been in it as long as he says he's been.
Yep.
I could pick his brain.
We're actually running out of time here. We're over our time. So, Mark, I want to thank you for coming on the show. For those of you who are wondering what happened to Billy Willard, well, I guess he lost his audio, so even Billy can't listen to the show right now. But
oh no,
yeah. So he's been.
You got thunder showers? I got thunder showers going on right now here.
He's been dutifully bringing the callers in, and unfortunately, since he has no audio, he can't screen the callers.
Sure.
So, Mark, I'll be looking forward to seeing you at the Creature Weekend Tampa, which, by the way, is coming up at the end of June. It'll be June 24th through the 28th.
Did you guys pick a site? Are you at the group campground?
Yeah, so we'll probably not do the group campground where we usually do it, Mark.
You're going to be up on Bigfoot Ridge?
Well, we'll probably go to Bigfoot Ridge, yeah. It's less.
Well, I'm only thinking because I need to call and make a reservation for Bigfoot Ridge. That's all I'm saying.
So I called, and they said you can't reserve in advance. You have to. It's first come, first serve.
Correct.
So you actually just have to show up, and then you can get your campsite.
All right.
But hopefully that'll be fun. It'll be the first year we've not done it at the group camping area. But Bigfoot Ridge is a fun area because that's where Mike and Lisa had their sighting. They had a really incredible sighting several years back.
There's been a few now. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to that area. It's a little bit change of pace, but we have a nice little group so far. If you folks out there want to join us, it's free. We don't charge anything if you want to come out and camp with us. But the park, Salt Fork State Park, does charge camping fee, and I think it's like $16 a night for your site.
16 a night.
Yeah. So anyway, give us a shout and let us know you're coming. That way. We can make sure you get all the information about when people are showing up and things like that. It's also good to know, who we plan on having there for that event. So it should be really fun. Mark, you've been to past Creature Weekend campouts, so you know how it goes.
Yep.
So anyway, before we say goodnight, just want to thank you again. Thank the callers for calling in, Lori and Chris. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Thank you
Good night,
very
everyone.
much for having me on. Good night.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to Sasquatch Watch Radio. We appreciate every one of our listeners. We hope you enjoyed our program. Don't forget to tune in again